News overnight, Pope Francis, dead at age 88. And Father Frank Pavone was good enough to join us quickly this morning. We woke and called him, and he was so nice to stick around for another segment, by the way. Thank you so much, Father, for your time again.
My
Director
pleasure.
of Priests for Life, National Co-Chair of Pro-Life Voters for Trump, or Voices for Trump. Could I just ask, in terms of mood or sentiment, how you feel, how Catholics feel, how cardinals feel? What is the sense of things when a pope dies? I know Benedict, for instance, resigned or stepped away, and from what I'm to understand, most Catholics don't like that. They would prefer a pope die in the papacy. Is that about right? What's the sentiment?
Yeah, we're not used to the idea of a pope resigning. We're just not used to that. It hadn't happened in hundreds of years. So you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is solemn, this is serious, this is urgent, what is this for Catholics?
Yeah, it's, I would say, especially in terms of Pope Francis, it's a moment of mixed emotions. For Catholics, the office of the Pope is sacred. It's part of our faith, and yet we know the Pope is not an oracle. In other words, it doesn't. When people hear about the infallibility of the Pope and they misinterpret it to say that, everything he says is right. That's not what it means at all. That applies to him teaching, like we said in the previous segment, what the Church has always taught. Infallibility is a gift to the Church, not a personal characteristic of the man. So we have been kind of spoiled. Our whole lifetime, most of the popes have been saints. You think of John the 23rd, Paul the 6th, John Paul the 2nd, John Paul the Great, as he's known. These were saints. These are canonized saints. So we've kind of been spoiled, and yet you look at the whole history of the Church, there have been some pretty failed popes, pretty bad popes, morally bad popes. I look at the papacy of Pope Francis, and I say, this is a failed papacy. And the reason I say that is really very simple. And this is not a judgment on the man or his morals or his soul. God has now called him home, and God is the judge. No, but we can look at the effect of his papacy on the Church, and it has been confusion. It's been a papacy of confusion. Things he has said, even calling into question, is Jesus the only Savior of the world? Are there moral absolutes? Is God's plan for marriage and sexuality what we've always understood it to be? These things are not up to the Pope to change or even to question. The job of the Pope is to strengthen people in the clarity of the faith. And just using that job description alone, you got to come to the conclusion that this papacy failed in that primary responsibility. So it's mixed emotions. On the one hand, the Pope is a revered leader in the Catholic faith, and so there's always sadness. It's also a teaching moment that, hey, it's Christ who's the head of the Church. The Pope, like the rest of us, are followers of him. We have to be faithful to him. But there's also, frankly, Chris, a sense of relief. It's like, okay, enough of this terrible confusion. Every time the Pope speaks, people don't know what he means. It's time for healing within the Church. And
how long? And Frank, if I could ask you, what is the process? How long before you would see? I know there has to be a gathering of cardinals, right? And there's voting or decision making. How long does that take generally?
It'll be a couple of weeks. Church law calls for a 9-day period of mourning, and that, of course, begins today. And so there won't be any action taken in terms of formal electing of a new pope until after that. So, another week and a half or so, and we'll see a conclave take place. How long the conclave will last is anybody's guess. But in other words, within a couple of weeks, we'll have a new pope. And the interesting thing is, by the way, everything freezes now. When a pope dies, there can be no more administrative decisions made. For example, regarding the appointment of bishops or accepting their retirement or positions in the Vatican. In fact, all the official cardinals that run the offices in the Vatican, technically, their offices conclude now as well, because they serve at the pleasure of the Pope. And so none of them is certain right now that he will continue in his position until the new Pope reaffirms it. So it's an interesting, it is a hierarchy. It's not what we're used to in the American system. But, but as I say, a couple more weeks, we'll start seeing the drama of a new conclave.
with a new pope, should things go the way we hope, I say we, I don't know. I'm not being Catholic, but I think a more traditional Orthodox papacy is what most hope for, at least on our side of the aisle. Yeah. Could you see yourself petitioning your way back into the formal priesthood? Does that work that way? Or
no, most definitely. Yeah, most definitely. I will request of the new pope, as soon as he is installed, a reconsideration of my situation, because when you look at the actual detailed record of it, I mean, it was so clear. I was lied to. I was lied about. I was abused, legally speaking. It was lawfare. It was lawfare, Catholic style. And I'm confident that a new pope with, an objective. In fact, many of the high-placed cardinals advocated on my behalf. Who knows? Maybe one of them will become the next pope, and then it'll be easy. It could. Well, but I'll certainly put that request in. Yes.
Frank, I hope when that happens, I would love to continue to stay in touch and continue to follow this with you. Thank you for your work at Priests for Life, as well as the co-chair at Pro-Life Voices for Trump. And we're going to have you back. I can guarantee you that. Thanks for making yourself available this morning, Frank.
Okay, Chris. God bless you. Take care.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.